Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth.
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 21, so whether you're back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. It's Tuesday evening, August 10th, and I am in a shed in the backyard of my home in Alabama, all so I can hang out with you tools and talk about the latest headlines, stories, and rumors in the world of politics, sports, and the paranormal. So I got into an argument this week with some people. And last week on the show, I told y'all about how I found out that Boston Celtics fans were more sensitive than I anticipated when I had the audacity to suggest Trae Young is a better basketball player than one Jason Tatum. But let me tell you, I found a group of people that is more sensitive than Boston Celtics fans. And this group of people is not in the Twitter sphere. I had this conversation, if you want to call it that, face-to-face with several people who are fans of superheroes and superhero movies. We were conversing, we were talking about different superheroes and movies that we like and actors that have portrayed these different superheroes and who did a better job. And your boy mentioned that his favorite superhero group, I guess you would say, has always been since my childhood, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And oh boy, did hellfire rain down upon me for referring to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as superheroes. I was informed by every person that I was conversing with that the Ninja Turtles are not superheroes. Maybe crusaders for justice or masked vigilantes, but not superheroes. And I completely disagree. This is a hill that I am willing to die on, my tools. I wanted to start off the show with it tonight because it matters that much to me. Lots of stuff that we could talk about. But I want to talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because your boy grew up on some Ninja Turtles. And not only did I play with the action figures and did I have almost all of them, including the Turtle Van, but I also would get up at 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings just so I could catch that Ninja Turtle action on TV. Your boy had like 4 or 5 VHS tape movies, full-length cartoon movies, and when the real-life movies came out, not the ones that just came out where the turtles look like they CGI. No, I'm talking about the 90s version where they look like they retired from Chuck E. Cheese. When those movies came out, they were instantly my favorite, okay? I love Ninja Turtles. And the Ninja Turtles are absolutely, unequivocally superheroes, okay? To tell me that my favorite superheroes are not superheroes, it brought back some bad memories. It reminds me of the time when they told me that my favorite planet no longer was a planet. All of a sudden, my whole life, I grew up with the acronym MVMSNUP, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and my favorite planet, little old Pluto. And then one day out of the blue, they just told me, actually, Pluto is no longer a planet. I beg your pardon? And now, after 31 years of living, they trying to tell me that the Ninja Turtles are not superheroes. How are the Ninja Turtles not superheroes? They try to tell me they're not superheroes because they don't have powers. I'm sorry. Have you ever seen a 6-foot-tall turtle that can talk, that can do karate, that has all of the abilities that they have? No, I don't believe you have. So your boy looked up what a superhero even is. And according to a recent Google search on my iPhone. A superhero is defined as a benevolent fictional character with superhuman powers. So by that definition, you're going to tell me the Turtles ain't a superhero? Well, then A, neither is Batman, because he ain't got no superpower other than privilege. That man is rich. He can afford all those gizmos and gadgets, and that's all he got. He ain't got no powers. He can't fly. He doesn't have super strength. By those metrics, the Ninja Turtles are more of a superhero group than Batman is a superhero. So A, knock Batman down a few pegs, talk to his fans, and leave my Turtles alone. They don't have superhuman powers. Aren't they stronger than the average person? Aren't they faster? Don't they have abilities that the average person doesn't have, according to every cartoon I have ever watched? Yes, they do. But okay, let's say you don't trust a simple Google search on my iPhone. Do you trust Mr. Stan Lee, royalty, when it comes to comic books and superheroes? Because he says a superhero, this is a direct quote, a superhero is a person who does heroic deeds and has the ability to do them in a way that a normal person could not. Now, granted, the Turtles aren't people, so if you want to get so technical that you're saying the only reason they're not superheroes is because they're not people, well, that's just speciesism, and I will not stand for speciesism. They're not people, but they absolutely do heroic deeds in a way that normal people don't have the ability to do. They have superhuman ability. They fight crime. They're not just vigilantes. They are full-blown superheroes, more so than Batman. I mean, I came home after this conversation and I was fired up about it. So I told my wife, I says, can you believe that these people tried to tell me that the Ninja Turtles do not qualify as superheroes? And she said, they're not. So I'm going to see a divorce attorney tomorrow. No, but for real, I'm putting it up. I'm putting a poll up on Twitter, and I want this to be our biggest poll that we've ever done. So we throw up a poll every day, okay? And sometimes these polls get like 4 to 6 votes on them. Sometimes they have 25 to 50. A few times they've had 100 or more. I want this to be our biggest poll yet because I believe that I am going to win this one. I believe that if enough of you will consider it with an open mind, you will agree with me that the Ninja Turtles are superheroes. We do not give way to speciesism. I asked my wife, I said, if you were a turtle, would they be a superhero? And she looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, what you mean if I was a turtle? And I said, well, the only reason you don't view them as a superhero is because you are a person and they are turtles. But if you were a turtle, you would look at them as though they were superheroes. And I'm not a turtle, okay? I ain't got a shell. All right. But to me, they're heroes of the super variety. Michelangelo, Donatello, Leonardo, Raphael, and even Master Splinter. We'll throw in the Rat for good measure, okay? I know that they got their ability and their size from an accident, from an experimental situation, but that does not take away the fact that they fight crime, that they do so in a super way, that they save the day, that they have abilities that no turtles have and that most people don't have, okay? The Ninja Turtles are absolutely 100% unequivocally superheroes. Just because they're not Marvel or DC in the way that some of these other heroes are don't mean that they're less heroes. Just because there hasn't been as many movies done doesn't mean that they are not heroes. I would die on this hill. The Ninja Turtles are something that I am passionate about, unlike few things in my life. The Ninja Turtles belong on the Mount Rushmore of superheroes. They are my favorite superhero team, my favorite superhero squad. They are heroes of the super variety. And we're going to throw up that poll. Follow us on Twitter at InTheShed4. That's the words in the shed, the number 4. Look us up on the Twitter sphere and vote in this poll. I want this to be our biggest poll yet. Share it and agree with me. And let's put this thing to bed. Let's put this conversation to rest. Because there is no debate. And it matters. Okay, to me it matters. There's a lot going on in the world that I don't want to think about or talk about. I'll talk about this all day. I'm riding with the Turtles. I'm in the van next to April and Casey Jones. I'm riding with the Turtles. I believe in them Turtles. And there is nothing about them that is not super. All right, enough of that. Let's get to some comments and corrections from our last show. Keystone 186, Hanobia 165, Townsend 80, still looking for Bigfoot invites. We are now up to 833 Twitter followers, about 100 more than last week, and we are on our quest to reach 1,000. You can add your name to the ever-growing roster by following us at In the Shed 4. Our audience is continuing to grow in the United States and India, which now makes up 17.5% of our listening audience, and in France, which is now at almost 4%. Shout out to our new listeners this week from Canada, Ireland, and Greece. Welcome to the family. And if you're listening to the show tonight, send us an email. We would love to hear from you. On our last episode, I talked about the possibility of meeting Regis Philbin in Wendy's. Well, as it turns out, that will not be happening. Regis Philbin passed away a little over a year ago at the age of 88. And I just did not know. I had not heard. I was not aware. Rest in peace, Mr. Philbin, I guess. On last week's show, I talked about my favorite picture of my Meemaw. In addition to occupying a permanent place on my refrigerator, I've also posted that picture to our Twitter page, so you too can bask in its coolness. Sorry, Meemaw. Last week, we talked about Joe Biden's performance in a CNN town hall event hosted by Don Lemon. After the show, we took to Twitter to find out what you thought, and 71% of you said that the president performed disastrously, while 15% called his performance meh, and only 14% of you voted in our poll said that the president was steady and professional. And on last week's show, we talked about the story of the Hopkinsville Goblins. While I did report that the incident was investigated by the United States Air Force, I failed to mention that Project Blue Book had a large file on the alleged encounter as well. All right, that's all the comments and corrections for this week. Let's get to some listener emails. Our first email comes to us from Thad from Minnesota, who writes, Wes, you are not a journalist. Just another guy with a podcast that nobody listens to. Drop the act. Well, Mr. Thaddeus, thank you so much for taking your time to listen to the show. You say no one listens to it. I assume that you did, because otherwise, why would you be writing us an email? And I would love for you to listen again. Stick with us and give us a chance. Look, man, I do have a podcast that not many people listen to. I won't say nobody. We are growing, especially in India and France. Our first episode, I think we had like 10 or 11 listeners. Now we're averaging up over 50 an episode, close to 60 on some episodes when they release. Our first episode has been listened to and downloaded almost 200 times. And we are going to go over the 1,000 download mark total with this episode, which is pretty exciting. I'm not a journalist in the classic sense, and I don't claim to be. I have said on every episode, I'm just a guy in a shed in Alabama. We drag a 50-foot extension cord out here and plug it in so I can talk to y'all about what's happening in the world of politics, sports, and the paranormal. But hey, Thad, this is a news show at the end of the day. It may be a different type of news show than you are familiar with and used to. It's not broken up into 8-minute segments with commercials in between where I have people on to say the exact opposite of the other person that I just had on. I'm not over the top and bombastic, but I'm giving you the headlines. I'm giving you a taste of what's happening in the world. I'm tossing in my 2 cents on it. And I'm not a journalist, not really, but this is a news show, and I have fun with it. And you can have fun with it too, Thad. You were invited to have fun with us here in my shed. Thank you for writing in. Susan from Vermont writes, I can't believe you sided with the domestic terrorists who wanted to kidnap the Michigan governor. You are absurd. Congratulations, Susan. You get the show. You understand the show. I am absurd. I am. And if you read the description of the show, it's in the first line. A light-hearted weekly news show. A light-hearted weekly news show. Look, we have fun. We have a good time on this show. I try to give you a taste of what's happening. I certainly did not side with domestic terrorists. You called me absurd, but maybe you are being obtuse. because I did not side with domestic terrorists. Go back and listen to episode 20. That is not at all what I said. I just said that something doesn't seem right. Something seems a little bit off and needs further scrutiny when 12 FBI informants are all involved in a case that winds up with 5 arrests made. And if it is true, as the defense is alleging, that those 12 FBI informants recruited, planned, and paid for training and provided all the supplies for those 5 people, then maybe we should look at it a little bit more closely. Maybe we should offer a little bit more scrutiny. That's all I'm saying. I'm for fairness, okay? This is America. I want people to be treated fairly. I don't think people should be railroaded. And that's what the defense is claiming. I don't know. But I said that we should investigate it. I do not side with domestic or foreign terrorists of any kind. And I could not be more clear about that. But yes, my wife would agree with you. I am absurd. And I do not fight that claim. I am absurd. Thank you for taking the time, again, like Thaddeus, to write into the show. Ben from Washington, D.C. writes, Joe Biden performed admirably in his town hall. He was compassionate, courageous, and well-spoken. Playing 2 clips where he stuttered does not change any of that. Benjamin. I don't know. You're from Washington, D.C. Maybe you work for Mr. Biden. Maybe your job is one in which he is your boss. I do not know. 71% of people that voted in our poll said that he performed disastrously. And I didn't just play 2 clips that were cherry-picked. I told you, I watched the whole thing. Those were the 2 most prominent where he did not just stutter. Yes, he did stutter when he said the or, and I did not give him a hard time about that. I gave him a hard time about his inability to formulate thoughts and answer a very important question in a way that was easily able to be made sense of by those who are listening to him. I earnestly tried. I could not track with the man. I don't know what he was talking about with trusted interlocutors and the man on the moon. It was bizarre. And if you're being honest, you would say that it was less than stellar. Okay? So you can disagree with me. You thought that he was compassionate, courageous, well-spoken. I'm not calling into question his compassion. He was not well-spoken that night. He just wasn't. It wasn't a good night for him. It didn't look good, okay? I did not throw him under the bus like Fox News and say that he belongs in a nursing home, but I also kept it a buck with you, and I said that it was not a good performance for Mr. Biden. And Michael from Boston, oh boy, we know where this is going. Michael from Boston says, Wes, you simply do not know basketball. Trae Young is not close to the player that Jason Tatum is. I wish you would stick to things that you know, but I guess that would be a much shorter show, wouldn't it? Dang, Michael, you just coming for your boy. I guess that would be a much shorter show. Oh, my. Where did you play college ball, Michael? Your boy was on a roster. It was Division III, but your boy made a roster, okay? Their coach saw me play and said, hey, you would be good on my team. Did you play basketball anywhere in college? Did you play in high school? Were you on your middle school team? Or did you ride the pine in rec league? Those Boston fans, they are mighty sensitive. I had no idea how sensitive Boston Celtics fans really were. Look, Jason Tatum is a heck of a player. But like I said, at the end of the day, what does he do at an elite level in the NBA right now? He scores the basketball. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. But what else does the man do? Because Trae Young scores the basketball, but he's also an elite playmaker. He's an elite passer. He was second in the NBA in assists. He averaged 30 and 10 in the playoff run and scored 50 in the playoffs, leading his team to the conference finals the first time he ever played in the playoffs. He's a year younger than Jason Tatum. I think that he is on Jason Tatum's level, and I think overall he's a better player. That's just my opinion. You're welcome to disagree with me, Michael. You're welcome to think that my basketball knowledge is lacking. That's fine. But that's my honest opinion, and that's where I stand and what I think. And your attempt to be savage on email does not dissuade me from that opinion. Okay, that's all the listener emails this week. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. And look, if you're listening to this episode 21, and you enjoy anything about it at all, could you email the show? Could you take 25 seconds to send your boy an email? Because this round of listener emails was brutal. This does not do a lot for my confidence in episode 21. I got some haters in my email inbox this week. Got some haters. Some people that do not believe in what we are doing here on In the Shed. So India, have my back. Canada, France, all over these here United States. Send your boy a happy email. Let me know that you enjoyed the show. Let me know where you're listening from. Send me a message and say hello. Anything positive, I will take it and I will read it on the show next week. All right, let's switch to this. Let's get to the news in the world of politics, and let's hit the headlines. 31st Texas city bans abortions. Eastland commissioner unanimously declares a sanctuary city for the unborn, according to CBN. From the post-millennial, CNN admits reality is getting in the way of Biden's plans to solve the border crisis. U.S. now averaging 100,000 new COVID-19 infections a day, writes the AP. Oklahoma Attorney General asked the Supreme Court to overturn landmark ruling on tribal sovereignty, says Yahoo News. And finally, America's biggest cities are done pretending to care about the homeless, and that is according to MSNBC. Our first story in the world of politics, the FBI searched cave for Civil War gold, fearing Pennsylvania officials would seize it, new court documents show. It was the summer of 1863, and Union Lieutenant Castleton and his men were lost. They were transporting a large quantity of gold bars hidden in false-bottom wagons from Wheeling, West Virginia to the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, and had paid a local to guide them through the hills. Now they were going around in circles. The guide had taken off with 2 horses, and Castleton was ill. They decided to separate. A small party would go find help while Castleton and Sergeant Mike O'Rourke stayed behind with the gold. Neither the gold nor the men were ever seen again. That's the story 2 treasure hunters told FBI Special Agent Jacob B. Archer, according to recently released court records. Archer had gathered evidence both of the gold's location in a cave on state-owned land in Elk County, Pennsylvania, and that state officials might be trying to seize the gold for themselves, prompting his application for a federal warrant to seize the alleged gold without the state's permission. The warrant application, recently released after a petition by the Associated Press and the Philadelphia Inquirer, is just the latest twist in a bizarre 158-year-old story that the 2 treasure hunters, father and son duo Dennis and Kim Pareda, say is far from over. For years, the FBI declined to say what it was looking for in the cave. It now says that when it searched the cave, it came up empty and considers the case closed, according to the AP. The Paredas and a former Wall Street Journal investigative reporter say the FBI is lying. We can live with it if the FBI says it's national security and they can't talk about it, said journalist Warren Gettler in a phone interview with the Washington Post. Gettler is the co-author of the book Rebel Gold, one man's quest to crack the code behind the secret treasure of the Confederacy. But to say nothing was found, it just doesn't add up. In 2018, the Paredas told the FBI they'd heard rumors about hidden gold in the area for decades, according to the FBI's warrant request. The story of Lieutenant Castleton and how the alleged gold got to be there in the first place came from a story titled The Lost Gold Ingot Treasure, which they found in the Army Heritage and Education Center at the Military History Institute in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. The story was written down for the first time on the centennial anniversary of the Civil War, it says, according to the FBI request. The Paredas used clues from this somewhat meandering text to center on a cave near the Dents Run area of Elk County. Dennis Pareda first discovered the cave in 1974, Gettler said. After getting permission from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to search it, they found a turtle-shaped cave, which initial tests indicated had man-made walls and a large quantity of metal on the other side. A colleague who was allowed to do a small amount of drilling said that he briefly saw a flash of gold and what appeared to be gold dust on the drill bit. On January 31, 2018, the Paredas, referred to as Person 1 and Person 2 in the new documents, led the FBI to the cave. That's your first mistake, Paredas. I mean, I know that you are trying to find a way to get access to the cave, and I know that your local government was not being so helpful. But why in the world would you think that the feds will be more helpful than your local government? Going to the feds. Mistake number 1. Where agents performed tests that confirmed the Parada's findings. There was something large and metal a few feet underneath them in the cave. The next month, the FBI used highly sensitive equipment called a gravimeter to determine that whatever was behind the wall weighed up to 9 tons and had the density of gold. Gold of that quantity would be worth hundreds of millions, perhaps even $1 billion, Gettler said, and according to federal regulations, the Paradas may have been entitled to a finder's fee of up to 40%. Then Archer met Gettler, person 3 in the new documents, who had a bold claim. The entire story about Castleton and O'Rourke probably was made up, but it wasn't worthless. Gettler told him about the Knights of the Golden Circle, a secret society formed in 1854 that sought to create a new pro-slavery nation comprising the South, Mexico, the Caribbean, and part of South America, he told Archer. During the Civil War, the group had Confederate sympathizers in northern states who performed clandestine operations to secure cash, gold, and silver for future Confederate use. They also used waybills, coded directions to communicate secret locations, and Gettler thought the lost gold ingot treasure was one of those that had been passed down for generations before being written down in 1961. Castleton and O'Rourke were probably fake names, code for Castle and Rook, which would have identified the chapter of the group. Plus, when Archer checked, he could find no military records matching those of the supposed lieutenant and sergeant. Other references to a turtle and heading east into the rising sun are symbols used by the group, Gettler said. Archer applied for a federal warrant to seize the alleged gold, fearing that if he asked for the state government's permission, they would claim the gold was abandoned property and thus belonged to Pennsylvania. In addition, the Paradas told Archer that a staff member for the Pennsylvania legislature had offered to keep state authorities away from the site while the Paradas excavated in exchange for 3 bars of gold, or 10% of what they found. Surveillance cameras the Paradas had placed at the site showed state authorities had brought in equipment to try to dig the gold up themselves, though they were unsuccessful. The FBI got the warrant, and the Paradas and Gettler made an oral agreement with the Bureau to observe the dig on March 13, 2018. All right, mistake number 2, Paradas. First, you bring in the feds. That was mistake number 1. That's a no-no. Mistake number 2, oral agreement. You got to get that junk in writing. If you don't have it in writing, it ain't real. I know that legally sometimes oral agreements can be binding, but if the feds are involved, you got to get that in writing. Talk to the Native Americans about oral agreements. Mistake number 2. Instead, they were confined to their cars far away from the dig site, Gettler said, and then told that workers were stopping hours earlier than expected. That night, neighbors said they saw bright lights and heard backhoe and jackhammer noises, though the judge's warrant had specified that the FBI had to stop digging at 10 p.m. Witnesses also say they saw armored vehicles in a convoy of black SUVs. The next day, unaware of the neighbors' reports, the Paradas and Gettler were again confined to their cars. Then FBI agents marched them to the excavation site and showed them an empty pit. I bet they did. I bet they did show them an empty pit after continuing to dig past 10 p.m. We were embarrassed, Dennis Parada told the AP in 2018. They walk us in and they make us look like dummies, like we messed up. But the more they thought about it, the less they doubted that they had made a mistake after all. It wasn't just the mysterious hints in an old tale. Multiple crews using specialized machines had detected gold also. Now he says it's insulting to imply that all of these people had been wrong. And tellingly, the FBI has never approached the scientists and crews who had performed all those tests to ask them what could have gone wrong in their measurements, something you would expect if a mistake this big had occurred. The way in which the gravimeter was used in this case, more than 50 measurements on a flat surface, is like a fingerprint, Gettler said. There's a very, very infinitesimally small chance that it's going to be wrong. Gettler believes the FBI found the gold and decided to keep it a secret as a matter of national security. The FBI maintains that nothing was found at the site. The Paradas have now retained an attorney who is fighting for the release of thousands of pages of FBI documents and video footage of the dig. There was definitely some kind of precious metal based on the readings of the instruments at that site, attorney Bill Cluck said. The fact that they wouldn't let them be there for the dig is suspicious, and it doesn't have to be this way. I want the gold. I want the gold. Bring me the gold. It could be that he got the hold of the wrong stuff, and they told him to get up in the tree and play a leprechaun. I'm going to go ahead and say the quiet part out loud. The FBI done found your gold, and they kept it. No question about it. The FBI found your gold, Parada family. I'm sorry about that. You did the legwork, but you told the wrong people. You brought in the feds. You took them to the site. You trusted an oral agreement, and they stole your gold. I'm not a conspiracy nut. I'm not somebody that thinks you can never trust the government or the feds. But hey, they got your gold. They took it. That's all there is to it. They took your gold. All your tests and your meters showed that there was precious metal behind there. They didn't let you view the dig, and then they just told you it was empty after neighbors saw a convoy of armored trucks. What's the explanation, FBI? What were the convoy of armored trucks doing past 10 p.m. at a state park or on state land? Picking up recycling? Disposing of leaves that had been raked? I mean, what is your explanation? The explanation is they done took your gold, and I'm sorry for you. I hate it for you, but they took your gold. And after last week, the story on the FBI, this is 2 weeks in a row, I had somebody email the show and say that I was a sympathizer for domestic terrorists, which I am not, unequivocally. You hear me say that, don't you? I don't know what hate mail I'm going to get about it this week, but this is 2 weeks in a row. We got a negative story on the FBI. And I'm just saying in this instance, I do not trust their word. I do not take them at their word. I'm not a conspiracy nut. I enjoy thinking about conspiracies, and sometimes conspiracy happens. That's why it's something that you can be charged with when you are arrested. All conspiracy means is that people are conspiring together. And in this instance, that's what the FBI has done. And they took your gold. I hope you have a 401k. I hope you have a savings. I hope you didn't sink all your money into this endeavor, because you will never see any of that precious metal that you have worked so hard to locate. And I'm sorry for you. Our next story in the world of politics, National Geographic adds fifth ocean to world map. Yeah. National Geographic announced Tuesday that it is officially recognizing the body of water surrounding the Antarctic as the Earth's fifth ocean, the Southern Ocean. I do declare. The change marks the first time in over a century that the organization has redrawn the world's oceanic maps, which have historically only included four: the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian, and the Arctic Oceans. The Southern Ocean has long been recognized by scientists, but because there was never an agreement internationally, we never officially recognized it, National Geographic Society geographer Alex Tate told the magazine. It's sort of geographic nerdiness in some ways, Tate said. We've always labeled it, but we labeled it slightly differently than other oceans. This change was taking the last step and saying that we want to recognize it because of its ecological separation. The Southern Ocean stretches from Antarctica's coastline to 60 degrees south latitude, excluding the Drake Passage and the Scotia Sea, according to National Geographic. That means absolutely nothing to me. I don't know if it means anything to you guys. That means nothing to me. The newest body of water makes it the second smallest after the Arctic. The waters encircling the southern continent have distinct ecological characteristics, including its unique current patterns, better known as the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, or ACC, according to the magazine. Look how I killed that pronunciation right there. Your boy got game. I can read. 31 years old, I can read. Hooked on phonics work for me, shawty. The ACC makes the waters around Antarctica colder and slightly less salty than those in the north, which helps transport heat around the world and store carbon in the deep ocean, all of which have a crucial impact on the planet, National Geographic reported. The change broke from guidance outlined by the International Hydrographic Organization, which standardizes sea mapping and official names. The organization has yet to agree to a proposal that was submitted in 2000 to add the Southern Ocean to the world map, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. they've been thinking about it for 20 years. If I thought about anything for that long, there's a saying about something or get off the pot. I'm just saying 20 years is a long time to consider it. However, most countries, including the U.S., recognize the body of water as distinct. Tate told National Geographic that he hopes the organization's new policy will have a huge impact on education. Students learn information about the ocean world through what oceans you're studying, he said. If you don't include the Southern Ocean, I do declare, then you don't learn the specifics of it and how important it really is. All right, look, my mom and both of my sisters are teachers. My family is very big on education, okay? I am a supporter of teachers and education. It is very important, one of the most important jobs that you could possibly have. I believe the science, just like the most prominent of Keebler elves tells me that I'm supposed to every 2 weeks on the television, okay? So you might assume that this discovery of a new ocean and adding it to the oceanic map is something that I am excited about. You would be wrong. Because let me tell you what we're not going to do, educators. We're not going to be out here just changing our textbooks all willy-nilly. And I'm not talking about CRT either. If you want to hear about that, you can turn on Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, or Dan Bonnaroo, one of these people on Fox News who talk about it every night. I'm talking oceans and planets, okay? Oceans and planets. Because coming up, I done told you Pluto was my favorite planet, and they just took it away from me. They thought about adding it back briefly a few years later and decided, nah, that's Wes's favorite planet. We not gonna give it to him. It ain't a planet. And now they out here messing with my saltwater ponds. Cause I done learned coming up that there were 4 oceans. And now, at age 31, you just want to tell me that actually there's a 5th? It's been there all along. We knew about it. Scientists agreed upon it, but we just didn't want to tell you. We just didn't put it on the map. Nah, miss me with that. Miss me with that, scientists. We not playing your oceanic games. I'll stick with my 4 oceans. The North won the war anyway. Your boy was a good student in school, okay? Both in academic affairs and in behavior. I didn't cause any problems for my teachers, except for one time. One time in high school math class, the teacher decided to teach us about something called imaginary numbers. I kid you not, imaginary numbers. And your boy wasn't playing that game. You want to tell me that in addition to pi and square root and multiplication tables and geometry and Pythagorean's theorem, that now, in addition to all of these very real, very calculable things, that there are some numbers that are in fact imaginary. And I have to learn that also. Your boy threw a fit, and I got kicked out of class. And I had to sit in the hallway for going on a rant. My teacher did not find it funny that I objected to some numbers being imaginary. He said, while entertaining, I do not have time for your diatribe, Mr. Anderson. Take it to the hallway. And that's how I got out of class and got to sit in the hallway until the bell rang. Don't try to tell me that imaginary numbers are a real thing. They are, in fact, by definition, imaginary. And I will not learn something that is imaginary. And now they're trying to tell me, in addition to taking my favorite planet away, in addition to forcing me in the 10th or 11th grade to learn about numbers that are not real, that now all of a sudden there is a 5th ocean. And I'm not buying it. I'm going to stick with 4. It's quattro for me. I won't go to Cinco. I'm just not doing it. Send me to the hallway. I'll wait for the bell to ring. I'm not playing your games. Our next story, Texas poll, GOP Governor Abbott surges ahead of actor McConaughey. Texas GOP Governor Greg Abbott has surged ahead of actor Matthew McConaughey in a hypothetical gubernatorial race, according to the latest Dallas Morning News University of Texas at Tyler poll. The poll's results come just days after former President Donald Trump visited the Texas border on the invite of Abbott. The poll marked a large swing toward the incumbent against a potential challenge from the famed actor, who led Abbott by 12 points in the past results. Now, Abbott leads McConaughey by just 1 point, 39% to 38%. Almost 25% choose another potential candidate. Signing new laws and optimism of new jobs across the state has given a renewed context for Governor Abbott to regain support from conservative voters who are disaffected by pandemic restrictions, UT Tyler pollster Mark Owens said. Abbott's ability to bring Matthew McConaughey's popularity back to his stratosphere comes after an endorsement by former President Trump at a time when Matthew McConaughey has been quiet about his political ambition. McConaughey has not announced official intentions to run, nor has he declared a party, but he has honest consideration because politics are a broken business, according to the Morning News. Abbott enjoys a large lead over former State Senator Don Huffins, garnering 77% support among likely GOP primary voters compared to just 12% for the Dallas businessman. Former Democratic Rep. Beto O'Rourke has not announced intentions to run either, and he trails Abbott by 12 points head-to-head in a hypothetical matchup, according to the poll. Abbott has done a darn good job on the border, according to the respondent Richard Schiller of Sunnyvale, who added, "I know what Abbott stands for. I have no earthly idea what Matthew stands for." Jonah Hanft of Saginaw, who is a teacher of AP European and World History in the Arlington School District, said, "I will vote for anyone but Abbott at this point." I don't know if he's governing, Hanft told the Morning News, or if he's just repeating what's on Twitter. I thought this story was too good not to share. A few weeks ago, I saw the first poll, and I almost put that on the show, but I thought, well, let's just wait for the next one to come out and see if things get shaken up a little bit. And I love the way the article phrased it. It said GOP Governor Abbott surges past Matthew McConaughey. Surges. As in, Abbott came from 12 points back to take a 1 point lead in the poll. All right. A 1 point lead in the poll. 1 point, which is well within the 2.5% margin of error. So he may not even be ahead. But they said that he surged past Matthew McConaughey just because he went from 12 points down to possibly being up by as little as a point. A governor who has been in office and who the people know very well might have as much as a 1 point lead over Matthew McConaughey, Mr. Failure to Launch himself. And look, people like to make Matthew McConaughey the butt of their jokes and to pick on him and to paint him as the characters that he has played in movies as kind of an airhead, kind of a bonehead or a dunce. And he's not that. He's really not. He's been running charitable foundation for years. He's been doing a lot of work in the community. He served as the Minister of Culture for the University of Texas in Austin. The man lives by a set of principles that he practices unwaveringly, which is a differentiator between him and most politicians. And I honestly think that if Matthew McConaughey decides to run as a Republican, he'll probably win. He'll probably win the nomination. And I don't just say that because we share so much in common, you know, with us both being so devilishly handsome and well-spoken individuals. I think he really might win. If he runs as a Democrat, you know, he may not win the Democratic nomination, especially after Trump being a celebrity winning. I don't know that the Democrats are ready to go that route. But if you actually listen to him talk about politics, he's got some good things to say. And I know he doesn't have experience, but he has some good things to say. He gets painted as a conservative, and in a lot of ways he is a conservative, but he's more of a common sense individual. He's more of a person that's for the people. And when he talks about government and politics and government's role in society, he's conservative in some ways, but then socially he's also very liberal in some ways. And I think that that's something that could be appealing to the average voter. Obviously, he's a name and a face that is well recognized. And I think I shared on like the last episode or maybe episode 19 that I'm currently reading his book, Green Lights. And the man has lived an interesting life, to say the least. He has a lot of life experience outside of making movies and making money. And he has the ability to be relatable to a lot of people. But if you're Governor Abbott, this poll is not good news for you. For one thing, the man has not had a good couple of weeks since this poll came out anyway. And he's not seen too favorably among a lot of people in Texas right now. I don't know if Matthew McConaughey actually throws his hat in the ring or if he gets into this race officially or not. But if he does, it'll be fun to see what happens. It'll be fun to see if he runs as a Republican or a Democrat. And if he picks Republican, I got my money on McConaughey. I think he finds a way to come out on top. And he could be the next governor of Texas. We already had Arnold Schwarzenegger in California. And if the kindergarten cop can get elected governor of California, why can't we have Mr. Failure to Launch in Texas? I think it would be a lot of fun. And I'm here for it. Go ahead and come at me in my mentions. Go ahead and send me hateful emails. But I'm here for it. I'm a fan. And if you do decide to run, Matt, we will have you in the shed. We're growing. We have about 65 listeners a week. We're growing. Coming up on 1,000 downloads total. We're growing. I'll get you on a billboard in India. Come on over to the shed. We'll get you in the governor's mansion. Our last story in the world of politics. Woman hit in the face with 10-pound log of prepackaged meat during a fight at Walmart. A woman is accused of assaulting another woman in the potato chip aisle of an Ohio Walmart, according to the South Euclid Police Department. The woman who was attacked had a protective order against the other woman from when they used to live in the same apartment complex, according to police. When the two made eye contact in the store, the aggressor confronted the other woman and threatened to beat her up as well as her 7-year-old daughter, police said. Then the aggressor allegedly pulled down her COVID-19 mask and attempted to spit on the woman. Oh my Lord. No, you can't do that. That's why the fight done popped off. You can't be spitting on people. There's few things in this world that will lead to a fight as quickly as one person spitting upon another. When she missed, she entered the woman's shopping cart and struck her in the face with a 10-pound log of prepackaged meat. Police arrested the 25-year-old Cleveland woman. 25 years. Why did I think she was 47 when I read this? She 25. 25-year-old Cleveland woman. She's facing charges for assault and violating a temporary protection order. Her 5-year-old child was also turned over to another family member. And that's the saddest part right there, is that children were involved. And that is sad. But that's the only sad part of this whole ordeal, because the woman hit the other woman with a 10-pound log of prepackaged meat. Are we talking off-brand bologna here? Did she get smacked with some bologna? Like, that woman's like, you tried to spit on me, and she's like, bologna. That was bad. Even for me, that was really bad. Imagine you're in the chip aisle at your local Walmart store and you're trying to decide between nacho cheese and Cooler Ranch Doritos, and you see this thing play out. You see two women in their mid-20s lock eyes, and then all hell breaks loose. And at the end of this ordeal, one woman raises a 10-pound log of prepackaged meat and cracks the other lady over the skull with it. I mean, she came across her dome with a meat log. I don't think I've ever witnessed a fight quite so entertaining in person in my life. I'm not gonna lie. I'll be putting it on World Star. I'm not even playing. A lot of times I see these videos of people fighting, and I'm like, why are these people filming? They should be breaking up this fight. You know, they should be calling the authorities. But if I see somebody come at somebody else with a log of prepackaged meat, I'm on record, and I'm watching, and I'm posting, and I'm going viral. I tried to find video. I did not find video of this anywhere online, which is too bad. If you found video, email the show or get at us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Email us at InTheShed@gmail.com. I want to see the video. I know that it's gold, and I know that it's got to be out there. There's no way in this day and age that there was not a video taken of this fracas. But it had to be baloney, right? It had to be baloney. It had to be baloney. Yeah. I hate that there were kids there. Kids shouldn't be witnessing this stuff. But also, mama don't play. So she probably going to get her homework done and her room cleaned up on time. I know I would. That's all for the world of politics. Let's switch to the world of sports, and let's hit the headlines. Kevin Durant leads Team USA to 4th straight gold medal. Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson makes return to practice field. 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan says team will run plays with Lance at quarterback. Memphis Grizzlies trade Grayson Allen to the Milwaukee Bucks. The SEC extends Commissioner Greg Sankey. UCLA men's basketball team to host Villanova for first time in 11 years. Indiana Hoosiers quarterback Penix rehabbing ACL and is on track for season opener. And the Florida Gators look to combat COVID by staying in hotels. I'm sure the Yankees did something this week, but we don't talk baseball on this show. Let's get to some real sports and let's talk NBA free agency. So a lot has already happened in the world of NBA free agency. Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, Trae Young, and Luka Doncic have all re-upped with their teams with big contract extensions. The Chicago Bulls have remade their roster, adding Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, and Alex Caruso, the giant baby. John Collins stays with the Hawks. Kemba Walker goes to the Knicks. But I want to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, the Fighting Rob Pelinkas, because the Lakers have done some Kentucky basketball type stuff. They have remade their entire roster in the offseason. They've added 8 new players to their core of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Horton Tucker, and Marc Gasol. The Lakers gave away 3 important role players to get Russell Westbrook, who can't shoot. They added Kendrick Nunn, Carmelo Anthony, who plays no defense, Dwight Howard, who has a bad back, Malik Monk, Trevor Ariza, who is old, Wayne Ellington, and the Dap Master, Kent Bazemore. And LeBron James had a lot to say on Twitter about those who call this roster reconstruction into question. He deleted the tweet after posting it, but he posted a tweet that basically said, y'all want to call us old, y'all want to write us off, wait until it happens. And I'm not sure what the it is there, but as of right now, it looks like a second round playoff exit. That's what it looks like to me, because I just don't think that remaking your entire roster during the offseason is a recipe for winning basketball. And I'm not sure about the fit of this roster. They did add some much-needed shooting in Wayne Ellington and Malik Monk, but how does Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis fit together, honestly? And is Anthony Davis going to commit to playing the 5? What is Kent Bazemore's role? Because he was promised a bigger role than he had in Golden State. And then the Lakers added Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn, who are every bit as good and younger than Kent Bazemore. I just don't know how good this team is really going to be. I don't think that a big 3 of Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis is on par of some of these other teams. It doesn't match up with that of the Nets. It doesn't match up with some of these other rosters that we see. And I get that the Western Conference is about as open as it's been in several years, because Kawhi Leonard is probably going to miss the entire season for the Clippers. And we don't know if the Suns can sustain the success that they showed this last year. We don't know how good the Nuggets will be with the additions to their roster and with Jamal Murray returning. We don't know how good the Warriors will be with a healthy Klay Thompson on the roster. So on the one hand, if Anthony Davis and LeBron James can both stay healthy for an entire year, which, let's be honest, that's a big if. If they can both stay healthy, can the Lakers come out of the West? I think they've got almost as good a chance as anybody. But I think there's just as good a chance as this just not working and of them losing in the second round of the playoffs. Because if I'm being honest, what this roster construction reminds me of is a bad 90s action movie where they just grab all of the biggest names available on the market and just cobble them together. Aged stars who are past their prime. Players that don't really fit together with each other. And then they just count on the greatness of LeBron to make it all work. And at age 36 or 37, I don't know if LeBron can do that anymore. Certainly, he's still one of the best players in the NBA, but he is older. He is not as dominant as he once was. Anthony Davis cannot stay healthy. You've probably heard it said before that your greatest ability is your availability. And that happens to be Anthony Davis's greatest weakness. He's got all the talent in the world. He's good on defense. He can shoot the ball. He can shoot it from deep. He can play with his back to the basket. He can play inside out. But he can't stay healthy. At least to this point in his career, when it matters most, he's not on the court too often. And if Anthony Davis is not the number one, if he's not dominating, if LeBron James is not as dominant as he once was, who do you have that you can count on to get their own shot, to take the load offensively, to score the ball in the playoffs? Russell Westbrook, the guy that can't shoot, that has the lowest three-point shooting percentage of any player that takes that many threes in NBA history? I get it. He's fun to watch. He plays hard every night. He's a competitor. He's still, even at his age, uber athletic. But he can't shoot the basketball. He averages a ton of assists, but his strength is not necessarily getting other people involved. And he's incredibly ball dominant. He doesn't play well off the ball. Will it be good that LeBron doesn't have to handle the ball as much as in years past? Sure. But hey, Russ is going to want the ball. So word is those guys are excited to play together, and I think they probably will be for 2/3 of the season. But down the stretch, who's going to be the alpha? Can Anthony Davis be the alpha on a team with someone like Russell Westbrook? And if not, if Russell is the dominant player, can the Lakers win in the playoffs? I don't know. Before we leave NBA free agency, I want to take a look at 3 teams that kind of have gone under the radar a little bit. 3 teams that don't get talked about as much as the Lakers that I think put together a fantastic offseason. And the first one is the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks who are coming off an NBA championship, I think they've had a phenomenal offseason. I really do. The Bucks were able to re-sign Bobby Portis, who was the heart and soul of their team in the playoffs. They signed Semi Ojeleye, who is a lot like PJ Tucker, who they lost, but a little bit younger. He's got less wear and tear and has more tread on the tires, so to speak. They signed Rodney Hood, who, when he's not on the team with LeBron and when he has his head straight, is an excellent scorer off the bench and something that the Bucks really were missing down the stretch. Giannis was on the bench. They didn't really have a guy that could get his own shot, and Rodney Hood fills that void. And they also added a couple guards. They signed George Hill, who is a veteran, and they traded for Grayson Allen, who is possibly the dirtiest player in the NBA, but he's also not a bad player. I really like what the Bucks have done this offseason. I think they actually got better. They actually added to their roster. They also have Dante DiVincenzo coming back from injury. They've got more depth at guard. They've got more playmaking, more scoring, and I think that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with again this year. I like what they've done. Then you look at a team like the Miami Heat. The Heat re-signed Duncan Robinson, and sure, they overpaid for Duncan Robinson, but his three-point shot making is something that gives their team flexibility on offense that opens up things and spaces the floor for them, so it's important that they get him back, and they did. They also got Kyle Lowry on a sign and trade. They added PJ Tucker, and they also signed Victor Oladipo. And if Victor Oladipo is healthy, look at the defensive flexibility and toughness of this Heat team. You're talking about Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, and Victor Oladipo on the same squad. Good luck scoring. Good luck scoring. You're going to get hacked. You're going to get pushed around. You're going to be in a dogfight every time you play against the Miami Heat this year. And the Heat needed to do something. They needed to make some changes. They have a good culture. They have one of the best head coaches in the game. They have a good GM. And they might not have got the home run that some people wanted, but make no mistake, signing Kyle Lowry in a sign and trade, getting him on their roster was huge. He's going to set the pace for this team. He's going to lead this team. To have him and PJ Tucker, they're going to change the culture for the Miami Heat in a good way. They're going to partner with a veteran head coach like Eric Spoelstra. And they're going to turn things around in Miami, who got swept by the Bucks in the playoffs. They're going to be a tougher team. They had a fantastic offseason. And then you got to look at the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors didn't make one of these blockbuster moves that have been long talked about. They didn't trade away their 7th or their 14th overall draft pick. They didn't trade for Kristaps Porzingis or Ben Simmons or Bradley Beal or Dame Lillard. They didn't make any of those moves. But they signed 3 players to veteran minimum contracts that really upgraded their roster. The Warriors signed veteran swingman Otto Porter Jr. They signed forward Nemanja Bjelica, and they brought back Andre Iguodala. And obviously Otto Porter Jr. is going to have to stay healthy, but if he does, I think he's a better fit for this roster than Kelly Oubre. And I think for this team, he's going to be an upgrade because he's going to stand in the corner. He's going to shoot the three. He's going to rebound a little bit better than Oubre. He's going to be good on the defensive end. He's going to be a good role player off the bench for the Warriors. And to get Bjelica, who averaged like 10.5 points between Sacramento and Miami, he's a big man that can move, that can shoot the basketball, that can stretch the floor. That's something they've been missing. He's going to be a good player off the bench for them. And to bring back Andre Iguodala is huge. For one thing, I would have hated as a Warrior fan to see that man in a Laker uniform or a Net uniform. But honestly, just what he brings in the locker room and in his understanding of Steve Kerr's system and in his ability to play with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, it's going to be huge for the Warriors. Iggy doesn't have as much left in the tank as he once did. I get it. He's not as good an offensive player. He's not as explosive as an athlete as he once was. But he knows how to play with Steph and them. And that was something the Warriors were missing last year. They had so many young players and so many new players. They had a lot of guys that just didn't know how to play with players who move without the ball so much and who make back cuts to the basket and who roll every time when they set a pick. So I think the Warriors had a good offseason. And if they get Klay Thompson back healthy, they actually have a pretty good starting lineup. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and then either Wiseman or Kevon Looney. That's not bad. That's not bad. And then to have a scorer like Jordan Poole off the bench, to have Otto Porter Jr., Andre Iguodala, Bjelica, one of the two big men of either Wiseman or Looney, Juan Toscano Anderson, whose game I absolutely love, and Damian Lee, that's a much improved squad. That's a squad that fits together a lot better than they have the last several years. And I think they actually made the right call by standing pat. As much as I love Iggy, and I was a fan of them bringing him back, I was hoping that they would go a different route and go for Paul Millsap and sign him to a mid-level exception or a veteran minimum contract. Because I think Millsap just has a little bit more left in the tank at this point in his career than Iggy does. And I think that he brings some toughness and some rebounding and some scoring and defense at a level that's a little bit higher than Iggy. They need a little depth in their bigs. And so I was hoping they would go that route. They went with Iggy, who is more familiar to them. And I can't complain about that addition too much. I think that the Warriors had a great offseason. So I'm going to be curious to see how the Lakers shape up and what they look like when the season begins, how they fit together as a team. But don't be surprised if the Bucks, the Heat, and the Warriors are much better than advertised. Don't be surprised if they're much better teams than they were last year. And don't be surprised if they go deep into the playoffs. Let's switch to this and let's talk some college football. The countdown is on. The season is almost upon us. We're almost there. We've waited so long. We're almost there. And in the next week or two, our next couple of episodes, we will release our In the Shed with Wes preseason top 25. We will rank the top 25 teams to be on the lookout for in college football this season. The coaches poll came out today. I think our poll will probably look a little bit different, so be on the lookout for that. But tonight, I want to talk about the story that has taken the college football world by storm over the last couple of weeks, and that is SEC expansion. Because the SEC is adding the Oklahoma Sooners and the Texas Longhorns to the fold. That's right. The two teams that have hated the Alabama Crimson Tide and who have roundly mocked the SEC will now be a part of an expanded 16-team SEC football and basketball and baseball conference. Apparently, this story had been in the works for some time, but has just been reported as breaking news the last couple of weeks. And it's certainly interesting because you have a team in Oklahoma who belongs in the SEC based on on-field production the last several years, and a team like Texas who belongs when it comes to the issue of branding. Their on-field results haven't necessarily lived up to the hype lately, but certainly when we're talking about Texas as a brand, they fit in pretty well with the SEC. And this news has just shaken up the whole landscape of college football. And my initial thought when hearing about this news was, I feel bad for you, Aggie fans. I really do. I really do. I feel bad for you, Texas A&M, because you left the Big 12 to get away from Texas. You didn't want to be treated as the redheaded stepchild anymore. No offense to redheaded stepchildren. You wanted to have your own thing, so you came to the SEC. You took your ball and you left. You went to the SEC only for Big Brother to follow you a few years later. And so, Aggie fans, I'm sorry. What's probably going to happen, even though you have a head start, is the Longhorns are going to come to your conference, and within a couple seasons, they're going to surpass you. I'm sorry. Don't shoot the messenger. You can email the messenger at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com, but don't shoot the messenger. But that's probably what's going to happen. And the good news for Aggie fans is you do have a head start. You do have a head start. But once they get to the SEC, it might take a season or two, but they're going to surpass you. And I'm sorry. That's just reality. And this decision is probably about a lot of things for Texas and Oklahoma. But on this show, we keep it a buck with you. On this show, we keep it 100. And what this is really about at the end of the day is one thing: money. It's about money. With an expanded college football playoff coming, the field moving from 4 teams to 12, you add Oklahoma and Texas, you might wind up with the SEC having half of the field in an expanded playoffs. It's about money. And Sooner fans, Longhorn fans, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because you've been saying, we want the SEC, we want the SEC. You're going to get it. And it's not going to be as easy as you think. Kentucky is a lot better football team than you think they are. Arkansas is on the way up. Ole Miss is on the way up. Tennessee's going to bounce back eventually. Auburn is nothing to play with. Missouri is better than you think they are. The SEC is no cakewalk. You get like 1 or 2 games a year that you will probably for sure win. And the rest, you better show up and you better play football. It's a big boys conference. It's head and shoulders above every other conference in college football, and that's just the truth. And people who are outside of the SEC and outside of their footprint, they want to say, no, it's not. Alabama is at the top of college football, but other than Alabama, the rest of the SEC is not any better than the Big 10 or the Big 12. Stop it. Stop it. Georgia is a top 5 program in the country. Florida is right there. Auburn is a couple paces behind. But even our bottom feeders, our teams that are loaded with talent, that have rosters full of NFL players, and you have to strap it up and you have to play every single week. You don't get to play Kansas. You do get to play Vanderbilt, but you don't get to play Kansas. You don't get to play Kansas State and TCU. Nah. You got to play with the big boys. So be careful what you wish for. And I got to say, when this happens, what's going to have to happen is a little bit of restructuring. And what's probably going to happen is probably Alabama and Auburn are going to move to the SEC East. With Oklahoma and Texas being so far west, it just makes sense that Auburn and Alabama would move to the SEC East. And if that happens, you're going to be talking about an SEC East that includes Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Auburn. And that's going to be the toughest division in the history of college football. It just is. It's going to be the toughest division in the history of college football. And some people have been at me when I said something like that similar on Twitter and said, well, the SEC East will also have, or the SEC West will also have Texas and Oklahoma and LSU and Texas A&M. It's not even close. It's not even close. Because right now, Alabama and Georgia are two of the top 5 programs in the country. Florida's in the top 10. Auburn is back on the way up. It's not even close. And really, Texas and Oklahoma don't make a lot of sense in the SEC when it comes to geographical footprint. There was rumors about Florida State and Clemson also asking and inquiring the SEC about joining. Those rumors so far have proved to be unsubstantiated and don't seem to be likely. They would make more sense from a geographical standpoint than Oklahoma and Texas. But I think the Oklahoma and Texas and the SEC could work. And my only fear is what it does to the rest of college football. Because what I hope doesn't happen is I hope we don't get 4 super conferences where all the best teams combine and they sort of break away from the rest of college football and do their own thing. Because ultimately, I don't believe that would be good for the sport going forward. We need teams like Central Florida and Cincinnati and Boise State and BYU to have the opportunity to play with the big boys. We need conferences. We need geographical rivalries. That's what makes college football different than professional athletics. So I hope that doesn't occur, but I do think that both Texas and Oklahoma can work in the SEC, but we're not going to see it for a little while. Because as of right now, it's not going to happen until 2025. And I don't actually think that it will take that long. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than 2025, maybe even as early as next football season. I think some kind of buyout or deal will be reached between the Big 12 and the SEC, but we're not going to see it this year. So as much as it changes things, for right now, it doesn't change anything. And if you're a team like Texas A&M or Florida or LSU or Texas A&M or Texas A&M or Texas A&M, who we picked to win the SEC this year, you better take advantage of things before Texas and Oklahoma arrive. You better make sure that you right the ship and that you have things in order, because those are 2 good football programs, and they're coming. That's all for sports. Let's switch to the world of the paranormal. And for our first story, we go to the waters off the coast of Somalia. That's right. We go into pirate country, my babies. 20 bodies were found on a boat floating in the Atlantic, and no one knows who they are or how they died. Authorities in the Turks and Caicos Islands are trying to find out what killed 20 people whose bodies were found on a boat floating near Grand Turk Island on Thursday. Fishermen spotted the boat drifting about a mile off Grand Turk last Thursday morning, and they alerted the Marine Branch of the Royal Turks and Caicos Islands Police Force, the Associated Press reported. In a Friday press release, the police said that while the deaths are unexplained, there is no indication of foul play. I'm sorry. There is no indication of foul play. A boat is just floating off the coast of one of your major islands with 20 people who are no longer breathing, and you don't know what happened to them or who they are, but there are no signs. I would think a boat floating with 20 bodies on it is in and of itself a sign of foul play. But I'm not a detective. I just play one on TV. Work is now underway to establish their identity, the cause of death, and the circumstances that led them to be found in the Turks and Caicos Island waters, the press release said. So if the work is being done to determine the cause of death and the circumstances that led to them being found, how are there no indications of foul play? You ain't determined that yet. You just started your investigation, but I digress. Commissioner of Police Trevor Boating, that is an ironic name. I am enjoying that his name is Trevor Boating, said the force believed that the vessel came from outside the Caribbean region and that neither the Turks and Caicos Islands nor its surrounding region was the intended destination. My investigators are working to establish their identities and how they met their death. This work will take some time to complete, he said. Boating added, whatever the circumstances, this is a tragic situation where many people have lost their lives, and the thoughts and prayers of the force go out to those families who have lost a loved one. We will do all we can to identify them and contact their families. Boats of migrants have often been intercepted in the waters around Turks and Caicos, the AP reported. Just 1 hour after the Friday press release about the mysterious boat, police posted about the interception of another boat with 43 Haitian migrants on board. And I'm assuming those Haitians were all living because the article doesn't say otherwise. Hey, this is a real-life ghost ship type incident. And it's pretty creepy. A boat just come rolling up with 20 people on it and none of them are alive. And the Turks and Caicos police don't even seem very alarmed by that information. They're kind of like, well, sometimes this happens, and we intercept people all the time on boats. Sometimes they're alive, sometimes they're not. There's nothing to see here. Don't worry. There's no indication of foul play, even though we're just starting our investigation. Are you trying to protect your tourism industry? Maybe. Call me cynical, but maybe is that what's happening here? Turks and Caicos police, Mr. Boating. The fact that, can we just pause for a second to just enjoy and celebrate the fact that that man's name is Boating? His last name is Boating. Like, that's incredible. Like, that's just so on the nose, Mr. Boating. And granted, this is real life. Like, these are real people who have passed away, and I hope they get to the bottom of it. I hope they are able to locate these families. Like, that's tragic. That's sad. It really is. It's also terrifying. And is it possible that they were migrants who were headed somewhere else and just didn't make it? I mean, sure. Is it possible they all got sick? Yes, especially right now. Like, that's possible. But it's creepy. It's creepy. The imagery. Imagine you out there fishing and you see this boat just floating. And it's just people on board everywhere. Looking like Jonestown. And none of them are alive. Like, what in the world happened on that boat? Were there more than 20 people on that boat originally? And if so, what happened to the others? And will we ever actually find out what happened? Will the Turks and Caicos police even be able to get to the bottom of it? Is there even any evidence there to assist them in putting together a picture of what happened? I don't know. I thought that story was interesting and worth sharing in the paranormal portion of our show because the imagery is so bizarre. And because there's mystery involved. And it may not be a crime scene necessarily, but to say it has no indication of foul play, I don't think you can say that. And I'm looking for updates on this story. I'm looking for some type of explanation. And if we find it, we will share it with you. But a real-life ghost ship floating off the coast of Somalia. From the coast of Somalia, we go to a remote village in Romania for our next story. Romanian villagers decry police investigation into vampire slaying. Before Toma Petri's relatives pulled his body from the grave, ripped out his heart, burned it to ashes, mixed it with water, and drank it, he hadn't been in the news much. Oh my gracious, this is how this story is starting? Like, this is the opening line of this news article. Before Toma Petri's relatives pulled his body from the grave, ripped out his heart, burned it to ashes, mixed it with water, and drank it. They drank it? He hadn't been in the news much. I'm guessing that's about to change. That's often the way here with vampires. Quiet lives, active deaths. Villagers here aren't up in arms about the undead. They're pretty common. Word? But they are outraged that the police are involved in a simple vampire slaying. After all, vampire slaying is an accepted, though hidden, bit of national heritage, even if illegal. What did we do pleaded Flora Marinesco, Petrie's sister and the wife of the man accused of re-killing him. Okay, Flora Marinesco, Petrie's sister and the wife of the... So his brother-in-law re-killed him. Okay. If they're right, he was already dead. If we're right, we killed a vampire and saved 3 lives. Is that so wrong? I don't know, Flora. You make an interesting point. If they're right, he was already dead. But if she's right, they took care of a vampire. Yes, according to Romanian state police, it is wrong. Its view, expressed by Constantine Gandino, the chief agent of the region, is that vampires are not real and dead bodies in graves aren't to be dug out and killed again, even by relatives. He doesn't really have much more to say on the case other than noting that Petrie had been removed from his grave, his heart had been cut out, and it was presumed to have been consumed by his relatives. Gandino added that police were expanding the investigation, which began in mid-January, to include the after-deaths of others in the area. The investigation is ongoing and we expect to file charges at a later time, he said, referring to possible charges of disturbing the peace of the dead, which could carry a 3-year jail term. We're determining whether this was an isolated case or whether there is a pattern in this village. Romania has been filled with news of the vampire slaying investigation, and villagers admit that there is a pattern, but they argue that that's the reason these matters shouldn't make it to court. There's too much of it going on, and too few complain about the practice. Vampire slaying is a custom that's been passed down from mother to daughter, father to son for generations and beyond, not just in this village of 300 huts astride a dirt cart path about 100 miles southwest of Bucharest, but in scores of villages throughout southern Romania as well. Little has changed since the days that Turkish invaders rolled through 500 years ago, seeking the mineral riches of Transylvania just to the north. By day, the people are Roman Catholics. At night, they fear the strigoi, or vampires. On a recent afternoon, the village's single store, which also serves as its lone bar, was filled with men who were drinking hard as they explained the vampire facts to a stranger. Most had at least one vampire in their family histories, and many were related to vampire victims. Most had learned to kill a vampire while still children. Oh my gracious. I'm sorry, what? Most had learned to kill a vampire while still children? I am behind. I have not taught either of my children to kill a vampire. I'm still working with my 5-year-old on tying her shoes. Apparently, I need to also instruct her about silver bullets and stakes. Theirs is not a Hollywood tale, and they laugh at Hollywood conventions. That vampires can be warded off by crosses or cloves of garlic, or that they can't be seen in mirrors? Utter nonsense. Vampires were once Catholics, were they not? I don't know. Were they Catholics? Were they Mormons? Were they atheists? I don't personally know any vampires. And if a vampire can be seen, the mirror can see him. And why would you wear garlic around your neck? Are you adding taste? That's a valid point. What is garlic really going to do? Where did that come from? What is garlic going to do other than give you some bad breath? I agree with my Romanian friends about this one. No, vampires are humans who have died, commonly babies before baptism or people unfortunate enough to have black cats jump over their coffins. Vampires occur everywhere, but in busy cities no one notices, the men said. Vampires are obvious when dug up because while they have been laid to rest on their backs, arms folded neatly across their chests, they will be found on their sides or even their stomachs. They will not have decomposed. Beards will have continued to grow. Their arms will be at their sides as if they're clawing out of their coffins, and they will have blood, sometimes dried, sometimes fresh, around their mouth. And that's creepy. That is truly, truly creepy. But the biggest tip-off that a vampire is near is his or her family, for vampires always prey on their families. If family members fall ill after a death, odds are a vampire is draining their blood at night, looking for company. That's the problem with vampires, said Daru Morinescu, whose name is very delightful and happens to rhyme. A 30-year-old shepherd who, like many in the village, has a family connection to the current case. They'd be all right if you could set them after your enemies, but they only kill loved ones. I can understand why, but they have to be stopped. Ion Balasa, 64, explained that there are 2 ways to stop a vampire: but only one after he or she has risen to feed. Before the burial, you can insert a long sewing needle just into the belly button, he said. That will stop them from becoming a vampire. But once they've become vampires, all that's left is to dig them up, use a curved hang sickle to remove the heart, burn the heart to ashes on an iron plate, then have the ill relatives drink the ashes mixed with water. And that's where you lost me, my friends in Romania, because I do not understand how drinking ashes mixed with water is going to make someone who is ill become well again. To me, that seems like a bad idea. And I am not trashing your traditions. I am just a little bit more of a germaphobe than you are, apparently. The heart of a vampire while you burn it will squeak like a mouse and try to escape, Balassa said. It's best to take a wooden stake and pin it to the pan so it won't get away. That's where the stake come in. Okay, I'm with you. Which is exactly what happened with Petrie, according to Gregor Marinescu, a cheery, aging vampire slayer who was Peter's brother-in-law. Marinescu's story goes like this. After Petrie died, Marinescu's son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter all fell ill. Marinescu knew the cause was his dead brother-in-law, so he had to go out to the cemetery. The first time he was frightened, so he had a little graveside drink for courage. He ended up with a little too much courage and couldn't use his shovel. So the next night he returned, and with a proper amount of courage, was successful. He got too drunk to dig up the body the first time, is what that means. And that is a comical portion of a very serious moment. A little too much liquid courage for my man, Marinescu. Marinescu said he found Petrie on his side, his mouth bloody. His heart squeaked and jumped as it was burned. When it was mixed with water and taken to those who were sick, it worked. His wife, Petrie's sister, interrupted his story with a broom swinging at him and a stranger. She was worried that he would incur the wrath of the police, who would jail him for sharing his story. But then his son Kostel called what happened next a miracle. After weeks in bed, Kostel got up to walk. His head was no longer pounding. His chest wasn't aching. His stomach felt fine. We were all saved, he said. We had been saved from a vampire. But how could he be sure his illness came from a vampire? What other explanation is possible? He asked. Well, Mr. Kostel, I don't know what other explanations are possible. Maybe, I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe you got well. Maybe the sickness passed. Maybe you had rested and you were now better. I was unaware of the Strigoi, the vampire legend in Romania. I was unaware of this tradition of re-killing folks because they were, in fact, sucking the blood of their relatives in an attempt to bring them with them to the afterlife. It's kind of sweet if you think about it. It all comes from a place of love. Misguided love, yes, but love nonetheless. It's a love story, my babies. Yeah, I don't know. That is an interesting story and a creepy one. Is there a biological explanation for these people having blood around their mouths after they are dead? I do not know. I am not a doctor. Is there perhaps some process that happens when you are decomposing where blood reaches that point of your body and is visible? I don't know. Can you explain it, my tools? If you understand why that may be the case, email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com and we will share it with all of our listeners. But I thought that was truly an interesting story out of Romania, and that challenges our conception of what is possible. For our next story, we go from Romania to the Jimmy Kimmel Show, Patton Oswalt's passionate explanation of his dad seeing UFOs. That's right. We're talking Spence Ochen on the show. There is a divide between those who believe in UFOs and those who don't. Patton Oswalt made his side clear during his virtual visit with Jimmy Kimmel Live on Monday night. The conversation was set up by Kimmel asking the 52-year-old comedian if he had seen the 60-minute segment about regular unidentified aerial phenomena, or UFOs, in restricted U.S. airspace, which will hit Congress next month. And that already happened. We talked about it multiple times on the show. This is an old story, but that's okay. We just get into it. It's all right. We'll let Oswalt take it from here.
Did you watch 60 Minutes last night?
I did. Yes, I did.
I mean, I can't, I think 80% of our staff had no idea what I was talking about. Am I nuts when I say this is what we should all be focused on right now?
No, listen, I agree with what Shaq said earlier. And by the way, I'm broadcasting. I'm in his pocket right now. I'm in his shirt pocket. But I have never. Here's what is frustrating for me. I've never personally seen a UFO or a cryptid or a ghost or experienced a time shift or anything like that. But I'm very, very open to that existing, and I'm surrounded by people, friends, and family who have seen and encountered UFOs. My dad was a test pilot in the Marines all through the 60s and 70s, and when he was stationed at El Toro, he said pilots, you talk to any pilot, they see all kinds of weird stuff up there, but they just don't report it because they don't want to go into a crank file, they don't want to see. So he said he was on a test flight and he saw a bunch of objects that he said they looked like glowing balls of energy in these round metal cages, and they were keeping track with the jets, and they would do these turns that you couldn't do under those G-forces and would disappear. And when he came down and talked to his base commander and said, hey, my squad saw, and the base commander went, were they metal cages with energy balls in them? And he's like, yeah. He goes, do you want to report them? He's like, no, I don't. And then the commander just went, good, fine, and then walked away. Wow. So yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, this new, what is it called, ATIP? That's the new thing that Congress is doing to look at all these reports.
Yes.
Are they going to also go back into Project Blue Book from the 70s, where they were really going into is all that stuff locked away, or what's going on?
Well, I'll call you after the show and let you know what's going on.
Okay.
By the way, speaking about a ball of energy inside a metal cage, I mean, it's MODOK right there.
I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry. What? What did Patton Oswalt just say? His father was a pilot in the military and actually saw UFOs firsthand? And he's breaking this on the Jimmy Kimmel show of all places? And he gives this super... So Jimmy Kimmel is typical late night host. Is ha ha ha, did you see the story about aliens? What do you think? And Patton Oswalt gives this legitimately thought out and well-reasoned explanation of his father's personal eyewitness experience. And then Jimmy Kimmel goes, ha 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 ha, speaking of that, let's get back to your cartoon movie that you're putting out. Yo, that was super interesting. I always find it interesting when we have celebrities that talk about paranormal things or UFOs or their personal experiences, but usually it's Post Malone talking about how he saw something at night when he was high. And this is not that. This is Patton Oswalt saying my dad was an actual military pilot and saw this stuff. And when he talked to others in his area, they had all seen them too. But they didn't report them because they didn't want to be written off or receive backlash or be put in a crank file. And I despise when these hosts ask questions and get an unexpected answer like that. They get a serious answer in response to a goofy question or what they think is a goofy question, and then they just dismiss it. He didn't even follow up, man. Ask a follow-up question about that. That was the most interesting part of the whole interview. That's the clip that get put on YouTube that everybody talking about, that's trending on Twitter. Ask a follow-up question. But instead, Jimmy Kimmel's ha ha ha, that's great, let's talk about your cartoon. Yeah. Patton Oswalt's dad was a true believer in UFOs. And he had first-hand experience. And his son played Spence Ochen on The King of Queens. What a duo. What a father and son duo. I want to hear more about Spence Ochen's daddy. That's what I want to hear. Let's get Patton in the shed. Let's get him on the show. Let's give him a chance to tell the full story. And you best believe your boy gonna ask some follow-up questions of Mr. Oswalt. I'm ready, Patton. Anybody know Patton that can hook us up? I'm ready. Holler at your boy. For our last story in the world of the paranormal, we go to the jungles of Africa. Dinosaur sightings. Are dinosaurs still alive today in Africa? I don't know, my babies. Let's find out together. It's interesting to wonder what the world would be like if there were dinosaurs still alive today. Unfortunately, when we were kids, we all learned how they died off in some mass extinction, never to be seen again on the earth. It might have been depressing news for a 10-year-old, but by now, most of us surely realize that it's probably a good thing for humans that dinosaurs aren't around anymore. Or at least according to Jurassic Park, that is. In fact, if it wasn't for the calamity that occurred some 65 million years ago, which caused the death of the dinosaurs, we mammals might never have gotten our shot. The prevalent theory is that the impact of a large object zooming in from space caused a global disaster that killed off anything bigger than a rabbit. However, climate changes, geological upheavals, and even widespread disease outbreaks have all been pointed out as possible causes. Whatever happened to them, sadly, the dinosaurs are gone forever. Then again, could it be possible that some dinosaurs survived extinction and are still alive today? Some cryptozoologists believe there are dinosaurs living in remote parts of the world. They're not talking about birds, and they don't mean crocodiles. They're talking about real live dinosaurs, and the proof is in the testimonies of local people who have seen them in the wild. It's unclear how this could be possible given the history of our planet, but the fact remains that local tribes in equatorial Africa know of large, frightening creatures living in the depths of the jungle. When cryptozoologists question witnesses, they allegedly describe dinosaurs and claim that that is what they saw. How could tribesmen who know nothing of their animal species located in distant parts of their own continent describe dinosaurs that existed 65 million years ago unless they had really seen them before? And does this prove that it is possible in very remote and largely unexplored sections of the African jungle that a few dinosaur species managed to avoid extinction? Some cryptozoologists think there could be many prehistoric animals still around today, even though modern science tells us that they are extinct. But if dinosaurs are still alive, that would be another class of amazing altogether. Many expeditions have ventured into the Congo region searching for tangible proof of these creatures, only to leave disappointed. But these creatures are well known to locals, and there is plenty of eyewitness testimony to go by. In this article, you will read about a few of the legendary dinosaurs alleged to still exist in remote parts of Africa. Mokele Membe. Forgive me if I just absolutely just really butcher these names. I'm doing my best here. I'm going to go with Mokele Mobimbe. Mokele Mobimbe may be the most famous of the African dinosaurs thanks to some recent attention from shows like Destination Truth. It lives in the Congo River Basin, eats vegetation, but is extremely dangerous because of its territorial tendencies. It will attack humans if they come too close and is known to kill hippos if they invade its territory. Despite numerous expeditions to locate the creature dating back over 200 years, it is yet to be officially documented by scientists. Witnesses describe Mokele Mobimbe as having a large, heavy body like an elephant, but with a very long neck and tail. To some researchers, this sounds an awful lot like a sauropod dinosaur. Sauropods grew to massive sizes, some possibly 100 feet in length. But even a small sauropod would be relatively huge compared to modern animals. Diplodocus is a type of sauropod many people are familiar with. Is this or something like it what locals are calling Mokele Mobimbe? Mobilu. The fearsome creature is found in the Republic of Congo in the Lukula region. Witnesses say Mobilo, say that 5 times fast, is a herbivore with a large jagged plank on its back. The jagged back makes it sound to some like an extremely huge crocodile or even a new species of crocodile. But crocodiles certainly aren't herbivores, which makes some researchers consider that Mobilu, why can't they just call it one Mobilu? Why they gotta have 3 Mobilus? Maybe of a family of dinosaur called a stegosaur. Stegosaurs were large plant-eating dinosaurs with small heads, bony plates on their back, and spiked tails. Stegosaurus is the most well-known of these dinosaurs, but there were other species as well. Researchers think this one could have adapted to aquatic conditions and made its home in the rivers and lakes of the Congo. So there might be a Stegosaurus running around in the Congo, living in rivers and lakes? That's crazy. Nguma Monene. I'm just enjoying trying to say these names, and I'm butchering every one of them, but I'm giving it my all. Nguma Monene. Watch me with. Watch me Monene. Watch me Nguma. Watch me Monene. All right, anyway. Nguma Monene is another strange creature from the Congo region. Apparently, they all in the Congo. It is described as a huge lizard with a ridge on its back, a low stance, and a body as long as 30 feet. It's tough to match this description to any known animal. 30 feet is huge for a snake, and it wouldn't have a ridge on its back. A big crocodile would match part of the description, but again would not have a ridge on its back. And one would think that locals would know the difference between a snake, a crocodile, and whatever this thing is. Some say Nguma Monene could be a Spinosaurid, a type of dinosaur that matches the native description of this beast. Spinosaurus, which some may remember as the villain of Jurassic Park 3, lived in North Africa and could reach lengths of nearly 50 feet. Is this or one of its relatives what locals are seeing? Amila natuka. That one's particularly fun to say. Amila natuka. Amila natuka. Ooh, I want to take you to the Congo and find some dinosaurs like on Jurassic Park, and I will die 'cause the dinosaurs are so tough and strong. We'll get there fast and then we'll die for a long time. Okay, anyway. Amila natuka. Another legendary living dinosaur is Amila natuka, known to the Pygmy tribes in Central Africa. With a name that means killer of elephants, this is a formidable beast that the Pygmies give a wide berth. Like Mokele Momembe and most of the others, it is said to be an aquatic creature comparable in size and stature to a rhinoceros. However, there are no known species of rhino in that part of Africa matching the one-horned description. Some believe Amila natuka may be a type of ceratopsian dinosaur related to the well-known Triceratops. The horn on the animal's face, its squat body, and long tail seem more indicative of such a dinosaur rather than a mammal or even a new species of rhino. Ngubu. That's this one. It's just Ngubu. That's just kind of fun to say. Ngubu. Ngubu is said to live in the savanna region of Cameroon. It's described as a smaller version of a rhinoceros with multiple horns and a frill around its neck. It also has a violent temper and will charge anything that comes near, including African elephants, which are much larger animals. To many cryptozoologists, it sounds like another ceratopsian dinosaur, this one of a different species than Amila natuka. The neck frill with the horns on it makes this creature especially hard to identify as any known living animal. No fossil evidence for ceratopsians have been found in Africa, but they have been discovered in Asia and Australia, so it's not a far stretch to imagine that they may have lived in Africa as well. So do dinosaurs still live in Africa today? It seems extremely unlikely, if not impossible, but people are seeing something strange and their descriptions do not match any other living creature. We like to think of our planet as a small place. Indeed, thanks to the internet and other high-tech communication systems, it does seem that there are few mysteries left in the world. But it's important to remember that some places are still largely unexplored. Equatorial Africa is one of those places. The jungles are dense and foreboding, and few outsiders have the courage or resources to venture very far into their depths. To compound matters, the region has been rife with civil war and political upheaval for decades, making it tough for modern researchers to safely explore many areas. The problem is, it's hard to imagine exactly how some dinosaurs would have survived whatever apocalypse destroyed their brethren some 65 million years ago. According to modern science, no terrestrial animal larger than a few pounds lived past the cataclysm that punctuated the end of the Cretaceous period. What do you think? I think that probably dinosaurs are extinct. That's what I think. I think that probably dinosaurs are no longer with us. And I remember growing up, I used to go to this little church, and there was this old dude, and he once told me that dinosaurs never even exist to begin with. That the fossils and the bones that we have found were buried there by the devil to make us believe that the Bible was not true. And I don't believe that. I believe dinosaurs were real, but I have a hard time considering that they could still be with us today. What is interesting is that there are all of these, and I mean, I looked into this, there are tons and tons of legends and accounts of dinosaurs being seen in modern equatorial Africa. And that's kind of hard to fathom, because when people grow up in an area and they're familiar with that jungle, they know the animals that live there. They know what an elephant is. They know what a rhinoceros is and a crocodile is. Those are not the things that they are describing, that they say they have seen with their own eyes. And I get that different cultures, especially cultures without certain technology and education, they may have legends and lore that serve to protect them from certain, like, okay. Well, these people know what animals live there. And the things that they're describing just so happen to match up very closely with dinosaurs. And it's bizarre. And the truth is, there are all kinds of places on our planet that have not been explored thoroughly. And the deep jungle of equatorial Africa is no doubt one of those places, along with the depths of our oceans and some other places as well. But for sure, there are places in the jungles of Africa that have not been thoroughly explored by outsiders. Like, for sure. And we have seen cases of things being labeled as extinct, only to find out that there are still some around in remote places, and that there are breeding populations. We've seen it with fish, we've seen it with birds, we've seen it with different species. So on the face of it, is it possible that something that we assume to be extinct could actually have made it and be alive somewhere else in the world today? On the face of it, yes, that is possible. But then you start thinking about the possibility of one of those things being dinosaurs. And that's where it gets tough, because dinosaurs are so big and so massive. And we've been taught from the beginning of time as a child that those things have been extinct for 65 million years. But then again, we were also taught that Pluto was a planet, and that there was only 4 oceans, and that there are such a thing as imaginary numbers. So I guess the long and short of it is, I know what I think, but can I say with 100% certainty that these people are all wrong and that there's no possibility? I guess not. I guess there's still room for some level of mystery, however small. And the truth is, I am not an expert on this stuff. I grew up, I love dinosaurs. I'm not an expert. So I thought if we're going to talk about the idea of dinosaurs and whether or not they could be real, that I would bring in an expert, somebody that knows a lot more about dinosaurs than me, somebody that can set the record straight. So we're going to have a guest to talk about this with us here on In the Shed, episode 21. I would like to introduce you to my dinosaur expert, my daughter, Layla.
Hi.
Layla, how old are you?
5.
And what grade are you in?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten. Today was your first day, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why we had to wait to get you on the show, because you had to finish your very important first day of kindergarten. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
So I brought you on the show to talk about dinosaurs because I think that probably you know more about dinosaurs than I do. I don't know. You know a lot. You're very smart. On the show today, we talked about how it might be that dinosaurs aren't really extinct, and maybe in some parts of the world there are still dinosaurs out there. What do you think about that?
I think some of them went extinct, but they're still out there, and they come out at night.
You think they come out at night?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that?
I never seen a dinosaur.
Yeah, me either. But you think that it's possible that dinosaurs aren't all extinct?
Let's find out.
Let's find out? How are we going to find out?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we would go through some of the dinosaurs listed in the article that I read, and you can tell me what you think about them, okay? So I'll say the dinosaur's name, and then you can repeat it, and then tell me what you think, okay? The first one is Mokele Mamembe.
Lokele Lamene.
And what do you think about that name?
Strange.
Strange. What about Mabilu, Mabilu, Mabilu?
Mabilo.
And what do you think about that? You think that one's out there? Yeah. Naguma Monet.
Might be watching us right now.
Watching us right now. I hope it's not watching us right now. That's terrifying.
What was it?
The next one is Naguma Monet.
Naguma Nune.
And what you think about that one?
Pretty.
Pretty name? Maybe you name one of your children Naguma Monet one day. What do you think about that? Strange. All right, the next one is Amila Natuka.
Amila Natuka.
Yeah, you nailed that one. Very good. What do you think about Amila Natuka? Pretty. Extinct or no?
No.
No? Okay. The next one is Nagubu. Yeah. That one sounds like a type of bubble gum. Like, would you like a piece of Nagubu? You got extra Nagubu? Hey, pass me the Nagubu, shawty. And that's all. So, anything else that you would like to share with the audience about dinosaurs and whether they're still out there? Do you have any other thoughts that you want to share?
They might crack a rat.
They might do what now?
Crack a rat.
Who might crack a rat?
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs might crack a rat. Oh my gracious shawty. We out here talking about dinosaurs cracking a rat. Well, thank you for being on the show today, ma'am. They got a fist bump. That's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 21. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports, or politics that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Look for us on Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Tune in again next week when we'll hit the headlines, talk some sports, and examine the mystery of the Minnesota Iceman. This has been In the Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling week. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scout.
Daddy, we made it.
Meemaw, we made it.